Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. My name is Angela Sun, and I am the Community Engagement Coordinator here at Theater Pass Marai. I am an East Asian woman with black chin-length hair and a round face. I'm wearing glasses with pink frames and a pink shirt. I'm sitting on a comfy beige chair in front of a white wall, and I also want to recognize that I will be speaking from a piece of paper because sometimes I get anxious when I'm speaking as myself. So I'm just going to ask for your understanding of this accommodation for my disability. As a settler and an immigrant from Wuhan, China, a city name that I'm sure is familiar to many of you by now, and on behalf of Theater Pass Marai, I want to begin by gratefully acknowledging the original caretakers of this land, the Anishinaabe, Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. We embrace collaborative and collective values as exemplified by Indigenous cultures, and we are particularly inspired by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. This agreement binds people on this land to share peacefully with their neighbors so that we may all have enough. There's one dish, one spoon, and no knife. In that spirit, we honor all who came before us, our own ancestors, as well as all the Indigenous caretakers, named and unnamed, recorded and unrecorded. Personally, I've been thinking a lot about responsibility rather than reconciliation. What is my responsibility as a settler to this land who have benefited from a system built upon broken treaties, residential school abuses, and missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, trans, and two-spirited people? What are my responsibilities to our Indigenous communities? How can I support Indigenous land and water protectors? How can I express my solidarity in the call for land back and Indigenous sovereignty? On a similar note, I also want to acknowledge that we are hosting this event during Black History Month. As an East Asian woman, I have also benefited from the system built by the labor of Black bodies and upon the violent oppression of our Black communities. How do I take responsibility for my own ignorance and education? How can I better support Black activism, artistry, and leadership? And how can I demonstrate that Black lives matter to me? I invite all our non-Indigenous and non-Black guests here today to join me in these reflections, and not just during February, but throughout the year. So a big welcome and thank you to everyone here today for attending the first digital iteration of our Prelude programming. We are so grateful to have you with us. Our Prelude events are a series of free community events inspired by the shows in our season. This Prelude is inspired by the themes of our first digital show of the season, 1111, as created by acclaimed artist Samson Bonke-Bantu Brown, taking place next weekend. Our 1111 Blackout Night performance, a performance reserved for Black audiences only, will be held on Friday, February 12th. As this is our first digital iteration of Prelude, this is Angela speaking again, by the way, we would also like to take a moment to acknowledge this digital platform upon which we are gathering, the privilege of being able to access this technology, but also the toll this technology can have on our mental and social health, and how the technology we use may have been at the cost of our environmental health. Just some things we would like to keep in mind as we all embark upon this new frontier. Finally, I have the great honor of introducing our moderator for today, the Associate Artistic Director of TPM, Indrid Kasapi. Born in Albania, Indrid and his family are privileged to make Tkaronto their home since 2000. He is a founding and current artistic producer for Lemon Tree Creations. Indrid has been a company member of the award-winning dance theater company Corpus since 2008. He is a graduate of the National Theatre School of Canada, a 2018 Herald Award recipient, and a 2020 Dora-nominated performer. Indrid believes his art must provide necessary discourse to fight against white supremacy, colonialism, heteronormativity, and misogyny. He also served as the associate producer of Obeah Opera at Luminato 2019. And I am going to welcome Indrid to introduce our very, very special guest for today.
Thank you. Thanks for that. That was great. Thank you so much to Angela. That was really nice to hear an intro. I should say that I'm wearing currently a black sweater. I have a dark brown beard. I have a shaved head, and I have my headphones on. It makes me look like I'm on a podcast, but I'm not. And I have a microphone in front of me. There's a white background. It's a white wall behind me as well. I'm so excited to be here. When I was told that, would you want to, be a part of Prelude and have a conversation with Nicole Brooks, I was like, it's like a dream come true. Of course, I want to talk to Nicole Brooks like always, but obviously in the context of learning more about Nicole's work and digging a bit deeper, And so, just before we let Nicole share things with us, I just wanted to introduce her to say that Nicole is beyond a triple threat. Her extensive accomplishments include being a filmmaker, a director, a performer, a singer, a playwright, a composer, a curator, a teacher, and an artivist. Brooks has devoted over 20 years producing innovative content for the stage and the screen with focus on narratives that illuminate the peoples of the African diaspora. In 2012, Nicole officially added playwright to her list of talents. Her debut theatrical work, Obeah Opera, which she created, wrote, composed, and performed in, has been staged in various incarnations from festivals to staged workshop productions in Toronto between 2009 and 2014. Honored with a Dora nomination for Outstanding New Opera Musical in 2012, and with continued development thereafter. An updated version of Obeah Opera premiered in August 2015 as a prestigious commission from the cultural arm of the Toronto 2015 Pan Am Parapan Am Games. Its final incarnation mounted in June of 2019, and I had the privilege to be a small part of that as part of the critically acclaimed roster of Luminato Festival in Toronto, and was honored with 2 additional Dora nominations in 2020 for Outstanding Choreography and Outstanding Feature Performance. Most recently, Obeah Opera was an official festival selection of the prestigious NAMT Festival of New Musicals late 2020, and at present, Nicole is slated to make her opera directorial debut at Opera Columbus in the spring of 2021. Welcome, Nicole.
Hello.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi. Okay, so I gotta do what y'all did. And how do I describe myself? So my name is Nicole Brooks. I am a fabulously goddess-like Black woman with long black locks. Am I doing good, Indrid?
Yeah, you're doing really well. Continue.
My background is red with a sangoma cloth, and I'm wearing my Makosi Idlozi beads because what I didn't put in that bio is that I'm also a Sangoma, but it's in the description of this event here. And I have a big smile on my face because I am just so elated to speak with you, Indrid. I'm so proud of you for being a part of the TPM team now. I screamed when I saw the announcement. It was last year or the year before.
Thank you. It was the year before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have had I just find everything that you do is so interesting and beautiful. And I find there's a lot that we can start with. And I think what I wanted to begin with is sort of your presence. There's a presence to you as an artist, as a human. I feel like you understand the relationship between your humanity and your art really well, and it's like you work towards your art in a way that understands who you are as a human, and vice versa, And so I guess I really want to start with the question that I have, which is like, where does your story begin?
Where does my story begin? Meaning as an artist?
Yeah, as a human, as an artist, as anything that you want to begin.
Ooh, okay, well, that's
Yeah.
a good question. You know what? I remember writing way in the beginning that I guess my entry
Mhm.
to storytelling, because I don't like to pigeonhole myself to say, you know, I'm a thespian or I'm a filmmaker or what have you. I'm an artist, multidimensional, uh, in way of, and that I'm grateful to have the ability to tell story in different mediums. But the entry was through music. So, and it wasn't even really typically church. Church came in afterwards. But yeah, when I was in grade school, going into high school, I was a very animated student who wanted to be an actor slash musical theater student. And I was in every, you know, very sister act in those groups that then you go and do competitions and stuff like that. And then, you know, at the age of 16, a lot of people don't know, but I became a lounge singer. I had a little trio in
I
Ottawa.
love
I'm born
it.
and raised in Ottawa. Yeah. And
Yes.
but I really accredit that period of time. Actually, no, I would take it to also as well the competitions, really learning that the singer is a storyteller. So
Mm.
whether or not I had the experience of being in love at that time or what have you, I really had to study the lyrics and really emote, or
Mm.
that's how I was taught, emote what the, will now say script, but what the lyrics are saying, and really try and have a conversation and engage with the audience in that manner. And
Mm.
then from there, I actually then I started to get into more of church things. I was raised in the church, but I wasn't in the choirs when I was younger. But with the musical developments that and learnings that I learned outside in the world, right?
Yeah.
Started
Yeah.
back in the church, and I don't write music even to this day. I took a little bit of piano and stuff. I have a little, but I do everything by ear. So I became a choir director, but I taught all the parts that I would hear by ear. And so I became known for that. But then I also understood the role of what a group or a choir had to do for the church. And that's literally changing the atmosphere and preparing them for worship or
Mhm.
adding to the worship experience. So, yet again, I understood that there was a role greater than just singing a song, as I did in the jazz clubs or in school. What is the story, or what is it that you're trying to do? And I think that's a perfect combination of what happens in theater, because yes, you're telling a story, but I also think you're transporting
Mm.
people to a place or a feeling or what have you through music. So, you know, in a hindsight, I'm not saying that that was something that I realized as I was going through the motions of becoming who I am. But then, yeah, I realize now, oh, I even said in one of an interview that I think after church, I was always trying to have that church experience, but now it's just through
Mm.
theater. So theater has become my church.
Mm.
You know, the reason why I got into film is because my parents didn't want me to become a singer or an actor. And so I
So
was
you're like,
very
I'll just move
pressurized.
on to film. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
they didn't understand that, but it was a little bit better, you know, math.
Right.
They're like, okay, I think we could sort of wrap our head around that, and
Right.
maybe you can have this career. But as of late, my father just said, wow, you know, you've said it from you were 3 or 4 that you were a performer and you stayed true. So even though there was an acknowledgement of us trying to deter that
Yeah.
path, we came right back to it.
Right. And it's so clear from the beginning.
Yeah.
And, you know, I want to go back a little bit to what you were saying about being like, you don't like to be pigeonholed. And I think about that often, right? Because I encounter a lot of young artists who often come out of theater school, or they go to music, or they go to dance school, or whatever, you know, the way that whatever their entry point is to artistic expression, right? And often they're worried that they don't want to be perceived that they are like other things as well, that they are directors, that they are producers, that they are composers, because they think that it's going to take away from the other things that they also want to do. And I don't know if you want to talk. I've dealt with that a little bit in my life in terms of like how to be like a producer, a director, and a writer. And eventually, I feel like for me, it was sort of like, who cares? You know, like it doesn't matter. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
What
okay,
does that mean
I
for
divided
you?
it
Yeah.
in two folds because I threw away the expression jack of all trades. I say I'm a master of many. And when I have that hat on, I executed extremely well. This is not no hodgepodge. I know what I'm doing. So I always say I'm a master of many. But I also think now, again, this is after years of just realizing as an African. So even though I'm Canadian, born and raised in Ottawa, my parents are Jamaican who immigrated here in the 70s. I identify as African. I'm like, as a storyteller, I encompass all. So Obeah opera is the greatest example of it. I could not separate, acting slash storytelling, music, and dance. That's how we tell stories. So I'm okay with that. And when I look at the great performers, so let's look at, and like a lot of times we look at African Americans, right? So somebody like Josephine Baker or Sammy Davis Jr., any of those, they played all the instruments. They knew how, all the dances. They knew how to sing. Like they were the ultimate performers in way of storytelling. And I'm like, I'm of that tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll add somebody like Jeffrey Holden. Do you know Jeffrey Holden? Remember the dude who played the bodyguard in Annie, the original Annie movie?
Oh, yes.
Well, what people don't know about him, he was the director of the original Wiz.
Oh,
He
wow.
is a dancer. He was married to an amazing dancer named Carmen, who was in Alvin Ailey. Like, so he was like a performer plus.
Right.
And I learned him very late as well. And he's from Trinidad, or he is since deceased, and he's now an ancestor. But when I look, I said, oh, I'm even more of that tribe. I do that because I can direct too. I can, imagine things, and everything is of excellence and very well. So,
and are you driven by the desire to do one of those things, or is it driven by the story that you want to tell, the thing that you want to share that drives like, oh, I'm gonna actually, I need to direct this, or I need to write this, or how does that, define itself for you?
Well, for me, I know, let's use Obeah opera, because that's
we will talk more about Obeah opera, but yes.
Yeah, but when I think about your answer, I knew for sure I did not want to direct. I knew I wanted to be the creator, meaning I knew I had to be the writer. And the downloads, and we'll talk about that after, that I was receiving as the vessel, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could not explain it to have someone else do it. So it was a necessity for me to also do the music and the words, because I actually went through a phase of trying to explain what was in my head. And I've said it and I will say it again. I don't want to liken myself to Beethoven or to Mozart, but I actually hear absolutely everything that was going on. So I was like, and luckily a previous MD, Andrew Craig, he was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to give you an 8-track. I'm going to give you an old version of Logic and an old mic that I have. Sing everything and let me hear what's in your head. And I remember him when he finally heard, he threw down the headset, similar to what you have on your head there, and was like, that's in your head? No way. And I said, but it was a relief when I was given that tool, because I was like, am I going crazy here? I don't have the musical vocabulary to be able to share my head. So that's what I mean by it became a necessity to have to be the composer and the librettist. Not no, I am going to be this way. I'm like, I have no other way to get the story out but to do it myself. So I was commissioned almost by the ancestors, the spirits who loved me, because I don't take credit for the work. I always say, I am the vessel. I'm not going to be like, oh, it's me. No, I am the vessel. And I was the only one that could do it because I couldn't translate the language any other way. And what I mean by language is the story that was coming forth.
That's beautiful. And I think in that, if you're looking at your work from that perspective, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day how you define yourself, right? So the concept of being pigeonholed is like, it's almost irrelevant, right? Because it doesn't matter. What drives it is this necessity to actually say the things that you want to say. And sometimes the way you want to say them is in this way. And so it doesn't matter, right? And so I think that's really beautiful. I think that's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to also think about, as the young artists are coming, to not start thinking, to start thinking in mostly in the ways they and how they want to communicate and what they want to say, and not whether or not they want to just be performers or directors, because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, right?
No, and I think it as I said, you're sort of led to know what you want to do and what you want to do. And although I have directorial experience more in film, I see things in my head, but in this medium, meaning theater, I was well to be the writer, and I'm the writer that's very specific. So sometimes certain directors may say it's kind of too detailed for me. I don't know if I have enough room here to be creative. But I'm like, no, there is, but there's specificities because I see it so clearly. So I preferred to shepherd it through words. So I do a lot of stage direction.
Yeah.
Visuals. No, but I found it interesting that certain directors would say it's too much for me, and that's okay. But I'm like, no, it's, as the writer, I'm quite clear on what needs to be seen.
You see it, yeah.
And maybe it comes from film, because film is more, the rule is show, don't tell.
Right.
So perhaps because I was trained there, I tend to write what I see, and then the dialogue isn't as emphasized. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if I'm the writer that writes those amazing long monologues that are just like fabulous. I don't know if I'm that.
Yeah. I mean, you're your own writer. It's a different thing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to move on to something else because we can sit and talk about this all day, just the two of us. But I do want to get back to just to sort of, we've talked a little bit about your journey as an artist and your work as an artist. And you started touching a little bit about your work as a Sangoma and a spiritual healer. So I have two questions, I guess, that, you can take on is, first, I think to share with some of our participants who might not know what that is, what does it mean to be a Sangoma? And secondly, what was your journey with that? What was your journey in terms of finding that out and identifying as that and becoming a Sangoma?
Okay, so in layman terms, to make it easier, we can say that the term Sangoma, if you look it up on Google, you will see those negative connotations of witch doctor.
Right. Yes.
And that's why for me,
don't look it up on Google, basically.
Sorry?
I said, don't look it up on Google.
I think I get really annoyed with that, but I kind of understand that that's how we're acclimatized. So that's why I said I'm going to start with the layman terms. Now, so if you were to go there, I'd be like, well, a Sangoma is a traditional healer. Okay, and I'll add griot. I'm trying to use more of the Western term so you understand, from South Africa or of South African lineage and base. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about that country is that they actually recognize Sangomas as doctors too. Like you can get a spiritual doctor note, literally to say, I'm going through a spiritual crisis and I can't. And I'm like, we need that here in this side of the world to be perfect.
100%. Yeah.
So they're recognized, like where I guess we do look at homeopathy here, but they're ranked as doctors, but on that spiritual plane. So we're going to work with the wonderful positive connotations and definitions here. Because I know if you look it up, and I think the vocabulary is changing a bit because there's more, and there's even a Makosi here. Makosi, I'm doing a shout out to Makosi Ateo. She's a sister Sangoma and she lives in America. So I'm really happy to see her here. And, there are Twasas in here too, I think, as well. And Twasa means initiate. So my journey to becoming a Sangoma, it was over 10 years ago, and I felt spiritually dead. So even though I was raised in the church, my parents, my mother in particular, and my mother's side of the family was Seventh-day Adventist, I was going through a lot and I wasn't finding the solace that I usually find there. And I needed something deeper. And I won't go through all the ins and outs of me finding my spiritual mother, my Gobela. But then when I tapped into that, and then she was like, you are going through a spiritual crisis and you do need healing, but I'm going to let you know that you're destined to be a healer. And I was horrified to hear that. I'm like, no, I ain't going to be on side of the street, doing no tarot. And no offense to anybody who does do that, but I was like, no, I'm an artist. Okay. I'm a filmmaker. Yeah. I'm not about that. I'm just here to try and just heal myself in whatever capacity that I can to move on. But I went through an initiation phase of just under 5 years. And what was interesting is that in that time of me going through my training, there was already a learning. And again, this is again in hindsight, I wouldn't have been able to articulate it as well, to realize that my artistry is a part of the healing work that I do. And that's what has become more paramount now as I'm, I guess, quote unquote, more seasoned, and realizing that actually maybe you were right in your outrage that I am not the Sangoma of this nature, though I do have the tools and the knowledge and the training, and I've done it to be able to do spiritual healing and to do readings and to look into people's soul and tell them what's happening. But really the healing is through my arts, and that a work like Obeah Opera, its ultimate purpose is for healing, for those who are in the show, who are part of the crew, as well as the spiritual experience that unbeknownst or beknownst to the audience that are watching it.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I think I just want to say that it is often where it's so important. We get a lot of information from Google,
right?
And we should try and question some of that source in terms of.
And I'll also say in a lot of Indigenous practices, whether it's Black Indigenous or even Aboriginal, Native, a lot of it's oral tradition, right? So, and meaning learning its trueness as opposed to a white male historian or anthropology gaze.
Yeah.
And how they interpret the culture, and or you know what I mean, and that's where it's from. A lot of the BBC documentaries and stuff that you may see on the very thing of Sangoma or what have you, you're hearing the narrative or the narration with a British white man's accent usually. So it's an observing, so it's an outsider commenting and trying to gather information, as opposed to either living it or from the natives itself. And that's even too in the nature of my work. A lot of it was orally shared because it's not written down.
Yeah.
And then we take those and move forward with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we need more of that. We need more of that sharing, oral sharing, and ways and means in which the work can be shared that way, right? I know I want to transition a little bit. I feel like time is just sort of like going by so quickly all the time, and I'm like, we only are on question 2. You know, I want to transition a bit into Obeah because it feels to me like that there was this amalgamation of these worlds for you there, and I'm curious in terms of that journey. And if you want to speak a little bit about spirituality on stage and rehearsing and
you're being very kind and nice. You're not kind. You're I'm feeling you talk to them about what you've witnessed, Indrid. Come on, let's be personal. Let's open.
Yeah, I mean,
tell me what you witnessed and what you want.
From my perspective, you know, when I was working as an associate at the time, and it was a big show, and it was a beautiful big cast, and there's some scenes for those who don't know the show, that have never seen it or have no context around it. There are ceremonies that happen on stage, the calling of the ancestors, the calling of the spirits. And so there are moments in rehearsal where the spirits actually arrived and were present. And thankfully there were healers in the room that could deal with that and could address it, and you know, talk to the cast and communicate with the team and all of that. And I thought that was probably the first time in my life where I was in a rehearsal room where I could witness it. And I'm a very spiritual person, so I totally understand, but there's also people that feel completely like removed from that experience, right? It feels, it can be a little bit like, whoa, what is going on, right? And I think and part of that is, for me, it's like, if you're going to be a theater artist, you have to be a little bit spiritual, I think, right? You have to believe in that.
Amen, brother.
Right. Like, I find that hard to believe that you can't be, but anyway, maybe somebody is going to, you know, fight me against that, but that's a different prelude. But yeah, I do want you to share a little bit of that journey for you in terms of bringing spirituality into the room, And then what was that whole experience for you like?
Well, I'm going to preface it a bit. So again, too, for those who don't know what Obeah opera is, it is a play based on the Salem witch trials, the events of the Salem witch trials, but told through the perspective of Tituba, who was the first accused and was the catalyst for the trials. And for me, I just found it interesting because most, if not all, the history books, she may be lightly mentioned and then she goes away and it becomes like the white woman's witch flight. Through my research, I found not only Tituba was there, but there were other Black women there who either were there already or came from the Caribbean. And the word Obeah was floating around in some of the historical documents that I had found while researching. And I was like, okay, well, that definitely shows that there was a strong Caribbean influence. The word Obeah loosely means witchcraft. And it's also seen as very negative in the Caribbean community, so much so that I remember when we did the hour version at the current, we had to have a town hall meeting because there was outrage in the Black community. People were ripping down posters and saying this was devil worship.
Oh.
And so this is why I have to preface it. Okay?
Of course, yeah.
Before it became, Illuminato's work was 2.5 hours. So that's how much of a development it came. But I just found it so interesting because the premise and the question as a writer that I was dealing with was also, as somebody had accused me on a film set for being a practicing witch. And then I became sort of like, I was fascinated because then people were fearing me. This is like, a recent time. So I remember that was the catalyst for me to start writing. Then I kept seeing the Salem witch trials. And then I was like, wow, I really want to look at it in this phase. That my mother even refused to come because she was like, my church friends won't come because they're going to see you as a witch and that you're dealing with devil things. And in the town hall meeting, I remember saying, from where I stand, one of the pinnacle questions that I had was, before they enslaved us, meaning Africans, who did we call God? Because Christianity is such a young religion. And that's truth. This is not bashing any religion. Christianity.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Judaism, Muslim, and Christianity was used as a tool and a reasoning for slavery, and also a pacifier and a mechanism of control over the slaves. So I was like, I just wanted to know what that was. But 400 plus years later, I'm looking at my community and the DNA holds the same fear because we were taught to hate everything about ourselves. They burned our drums. We were told to forget everything before, and now we don't remember anything, not even our names. And I'm here now having to defend, an investigation of who were we before the popularized era of slavery, right? That's really the foundation. So each year that I was writing, it became deeper. I did not go into it thinking I'm going to be doing these things. Now, again, more in hindsight, but part of the process is that I realized that this story was bigger than me. And that I realized I'm in agreement with you, Indrit, that theater, and especially, I'll even say actors, I believe we all channel. Like when you see people go really in and they're just not themselves, I believe you're not yourself. I believe you are channeling.
Yeah.
Right? I believe you are taking from something and you're becoming another.
Yeah.
That became a process within my writing. So that's why I'm hearing things, I'm seeing things, I'm waking up to dreams and writing it down saying that's a scene of my play, or I'm hearing a song and that's in it. And I'm being guided to tell those things. So each year it got deeper.
Right.
And I was first flirting with what I should show, because usually spirituality, and here's the thing, even in my research, I couldn't use Google because it wasn't showing me enough. So I had to seek out practitioners of Voodoo, Obeah, Santeria, because they all represent the Orisha pantheon. Okay, I'll say that. And at first they didn't even want to talk to me because they're like, you're going to demonize what we do. And we've had to go underground. And there was a promise of, no, I want to present it in a positive light.
Right.
I want to, it is healing. This is what our ancestors did to survive. So another thesis or another point of Obeah opera became, yes, this is a slave narrative, which again wasn't my intention, but it's steeped in rebellion and a fight to know and keep who you are. Meaning, you know, because they were either first generation or ones that were taken, so they would know who they are. Yeah. So these women are fighting to remember their culture, fighting to remember their religion, fighting and saying that this is our power. This is the only way we can survive in this new land, or this land that we are. We have to preserve ourselves. And so now I realize, and I have a different lens and take on the so-called, I say so-called slave narrative, because it's, again, always in the shucking and jiving and, oh yes, master, and people are getting tired. A lot of Black people are like, I'm tired of this slave story. I'm like, it's because of how it's being told.
Yeah.
How many World War II, World War I stories, all these stories, how many? What is the vantage point that you're taking? And this is why Obeah opera is so different, because it's looking at the resilience of the slave woman who is being persecuted for being a witch because they were healers. They were midwives. They knew how to use herbs. That's what we're showing in Obeah opera. And if that's a witch, then okay, then we're witches.
Yeah. And maybe we should change the connotation around witches, you know, like with
absolutely
being portrayed in that way. We're learning it in the wrong way. That you know, there, just to say really quickly, that's something I grew up Catholic as well, and I read this book in my journey of coming out as a gay man and all that, you know, but there's this book called Jesus Christ the Pagan, and it changed a lot of my views around things. And as you're talking about it, I was like, you know, even the word pagan being like a taboo word, a bad word, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But I do want to get back to this sort of marriage that you have in Obeah, right? This marriage of your art and what it is like, that it is so present, right? Like that's what you were saying, like it's so present.
Your last question, because you did say you were a witness. So yeah, we're dealing with this piece. The Orishas really guided the work. The Orishas are deities in the Yoruba traditional indigenous practice, I'll call it that. And then it was transported to the Caribbean. So in Trinidad, you would hear like Shango Baptist, but its roots trace back to Nigeria. Now in that, I choralized traditional music to be a part of it. And we knew very early on, if you call them enough, they will come. And so no matter how much explanation to those novices who do not know of the spiritual practices, and I have had actors leave the work because they were scared. Not Luminato's version, but throughout the thing, they were like, we can't, this is too scary. We're too scared. So I realized that moving forward, and if Obeah opera does continue in its various incarnations, as it tours internationally, and if there are new cast members and or new creatives, there has to be an explanation. So similarly to how now it has become common practice to talk about safe space and the rules in which that lies on how we treat each other and how we can touch each other and what have you. With the work that I have to do, there has to be a understanding of a spiritual safe space and what could happen when you become an open vessel, and that you will be used.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it very basic. But when people are overtaken with spirit, and there is actually controversy about that too. I remember Roma Spencer, who is also very predominant in the Black theater world, and R.G. Zina Mandela. I remember they'd be like, don't go there. I think whereas there is a talk of the responsibility of the theater actor to not be overtaken and to stay in control and to stay present for the audience. And I think that that's interesting too. I'm not saying I have it either way, because I'm not going in saying let's be of spirit and ceremony and forget the story that we're being told. But sometimes it does overtake. But we had protocols on how to deal with it. As you rightfully said, we had people, and it wasn't me, even though I'm an authority to do so. Yeah. Our choreographer at the time, and we actually had what we called her an Obeah woman, a resident Obeah woman. who knew what to do. So on stage,
Yeah.
she would actually be surveilling,
Yeah.
especially during the ceremony aspect. And if she saw someone who was in spirit, it looked performative,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't. And she would either lead them off the stage, deal, or, you know, and then we would have a protocol on how to come back into the scene.
How to deal with it. Yeah.
So I know now moving forward, because all of my work will have a spiritual foundation, whatever it is, that we have to understand who we're evoking and calling in.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I wanted you to talk about that because it is rarely spoken about. And I think it is,
and I don't know how many works do this kind of thing.
That's the thing, right? Yeah, exactly just that. And I think the general response is that what you're saying is like, don't go there, you know, just stay away, you know. And from my experience, it was exactly what you're sharing, that there was like protocol, and there was a conversation, there was knowledge, there was a way to actually handle it, you know, and let it actually be on stage and share it, you know. Okay, we have like not a lot of time left, but I do want to just to switch gears completely. We were inspired, Angela and I, as we were talking about this session, and she said that it's kind of like Actor Studio, and so then her and I kind of we found these rapid fire questions that we could ask you just to have some fun, and they're James Lipton inspired questions.
And that's one of my favorite shows, is the Actor Studio.
Yeah, I love that show too. So we found a bunch, and then we're just going to go, and it's going to be rapid fire. And then after that, we'll hopefully take some questions. So in the meantime, as we're doing this, if whoever's here has questions, just plop them into the chat room, and then we'll get to the questions at the end of this. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
What is your favorite word?
Oh, my favorite. I should know this because I watch it all the time. What is my favorite word? Orgasmic.
Great. That's a great word. It's a great word. Great word. I love that word. What is your least favorite word?
No.
Very good. Very good. What is your favorite curse word?
Okay. Motherfucker. I'm Samuel Jackson's child. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. What sound or noise do you love?
My children laughing.
Oh, that's beautiful. What sound or noise do you hate?
Anything to do with deep pain. Does that make sense? Like a moan or a cry. So laughter and that kind of.
And like pain. Yeah, deep pain. What profession other than your, and this is a good question for you actually, but what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, see, that's hard because I do a lot. I
know. That's why I was like, what else could she possibly be doing?
Because I'm like, I would teach, but I teach.
You do it all. So.
I'm trying to think.
What have you not done that you've it's maybe in the back of your head there that you're like, well, maybe I'll try my hand at this.
Well, because I'm a healer, and I'm not the healer that deals with like herbs and operational things like that. I think I'd be kind of fascinated in that, to try and heal physically in that way. Does that make sense? That's not my forte.
Right. I see. Okay, great.
I heal in other ways.
You heal in other ways, yeah. Not you heal spiritually, but not like physically, I guess.
Yeah, but even with sangomas, there are sangomas that deal with, you know, coming up with herbal concoctions and stuff to aid. Right. I'm not good at that.
Right.
I'm not well versed in that. That's not my forte. So I'm like, you know what, I would, or being able to do potions. Right. And herbs are potions, like, you know what I mean? Perfume.
Yeah.
You know, all of that stuff. It's supposed to be in my realm, but it's not. I've been dedicated to putting things in artistic form. I don't know.
Yeah, other ways. Well, you never know. Maybe one of these days. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes.
I think so. I mean, it's a sandwich.
I said with so much conviction, I had to think about it. Yes, damn it, it's between two slices of bread. And somebody just said, no, how?
Yeah. And then the last question I have is, if you were a pie, what kind of pie would you be?
Do you know Bonnie Beecher?
Yes, of course. I love Bonnie Beecher.
She has, over COVID, I didn't know she had this talent of becoming a baker. Because of her, I want to be her blueberry pie or her pecan tarts. It's a
oh my God.
Like, have you ordered her? Everybody?
No, I haven't, but I'm going to order the blueberry pie from Bonnie Beecher.
Tarts, but you didn't say tarts. Her blueberry pie just changed my life over like COVID. And she's responsible for part of my 20+ pound gainage.
Right.
She's partly responsible due to the baking that she's, turned.
She's just done. Oh, okay. I wanna, get some of that as well. So I'm gonna make sure I get some of Bonnie Beecher pie. I want to be part of that club that ate Bonnie Beecher's blueberry pies. Okay, so we have like 4 minutes left, but I think there's some questions here. I have a question here that's, what excites Nicole about the future of theater, and what are you afraid of? That's a great question. What excites you about the future of theater, but also what are you afraid of?
Well, I fear that, it's funny. I was talking to my partner and we're just talking about, we're living in an era that we will then move forward in BC before COVID and AC after COVID. And what I'm afraid of is that live performance will never return back to what it was or become greater. What I've been grappling with, like everybody else, and even with what TPM is doing, the digital way is great. We've had to really come up with some exciting and innovative ways, but there's something about live theater.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited for when we can come back live. That's what excites. Like I'm not one to say that theater is now going to be a digital form. We're never, ever, ever, ever going to return back. I'm like, no. Right. What excites me is that right now we're in a time where development is more appreciated and invested in. You know what I'm talking about, Ingrid.
Yeah, totally.
You don't put a lot, like Canadians, or what I've found is that development doesn't get enough money or time.
Yeah.
So I like this era. What I like COVID about is that there's a respect of development and longer time to develop.
Yeah.
And more money into development and giving the artist time to write and eat. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember singing "Oh Canada," you know what I'm saying? Because we got our little, what are they called? I know the Americans only got one stimulus. What did we get? CERB. I was singing "Oh Canada," but then I'm also singing "Oh Canada" because y'all are, and I'm talking about theater companies too, saying we're going to put more emphasis on development right now.
Yeah.
Yay, that can't leave post-COVID, whether we call it PC or AC. We can't forget about the amount of time it needs to develop, but I'm afraid that, and I'm not going to hold it. I know we're going to be able, because I've even said, people asked me, what's Obeah Opera's COVID contingency? I'm like, there's not one. It needs to be experienced live. I'm not saying I'll never do what Hamilton did and put it on, stage, but that's after it's run.
Yeah.
But we all know what we're talking about. There's something about, like, film can't do live theater. No matter how great you film it,
totally,
it is not the same as being on stage and an audience experiencing it. Even when that experience is taped, you're like, no, man, I remember when I was sitting in the room.
Yeah, 100%.
Chills or whatever that was.
Yeah.
So there's a call for me to just saying we must return back and become even greater.
And I actually think that I had the same fear, Nicole, the same fear, but I feel now that actually what's happened is that a lot of people are starting to get tired of the Netflix and the Craves and all those on the screen, like all my friends are just so tired that I actually think it will benefit live performance. We will become such a priority. That's what people are going to want to do. They don't want to be in front of a screen anymore. They want to be with each other. They want to talk to other people, right? And so I'm getting this, I'm hopeful now. You know, I was very not hopeful, but now I'm hopeful. So I agree with you. There's another question here. How are you maintaining your artistic identity during COVID? And I think this will be the last question.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, COVID allowed me to pause, as everybody else, and really think about my next work. And that's why I'm saying I'm enjoying that there's a wave of let's give a lot of money to development. Yeah. Yes, please let me sit down at home and be able to write without worrying about eating.
Yeah.
Making rent. And I'm not saying it's oodles of money, but it's more than what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying the percolatings of my next work, which is another large musical work. I'm enjoying being an artist, but in my spiritual community. I was teaching at a new school by Makosi Ateo called the African Mystery Schools, and I had a 6-week module saying, you know, co-creating with the ancestors. So that allowed me to really cement my process spiritually and creatively, which is literally the same thing. It's like Kundalini. You know, as sexual energy is creative energy, because it's the same. We are part of that Kundalini. Kundalini, it's all in. We're birthing something, right?
Right.
So that really excited me to hone my craft in that way and share it. So I think I'm going to continue in that vein, and it's my coming out spiritually. I could say that more and more, that I'm not going to be afraid anymore to just be like, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And in this experience that I'm having, I can take you on that journey in some way. Maybe it's even more palatable to see it in art.
Yeah.
Right?
That's beautiful. Yeah. Okay. To close off, I know we're like 2 minutes over.
No, I'm good. I told you I can go a little over, so it's
yeah. I just want three things. If there's somebody out there who is young and they're just starting out and they don't quite know which way to go, what are the 3 things that you wish you were told that you were not when you began your journey?
It's very cliche, but fight for your vision. I was told more than 100 times that OB Opera is too big and it would never happen. I remember a white male AD telling me, well, that's not true. They won't give it to you. Because we do fund larger stuff, but it usually goes to the National Ballet, or like when you look at it in a greater scheme of whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, wow. And I had a lot of falling flat on my face. So it's hold on to your vision, the very never give up, right? Because I guess it will loop into, because nobody has your story. Like really and true, like nobody. Like you and I can write on the same topic, but it's not going to be the same story, because your experience is your experience and mine is my experience.
Yeah.
So dare to be unapologetic. The other thing I wish somebody had said, I had to fight for that, because before I would apologize a lot. I think I still do in certain ways. But now I'm like, no, this is how I create. And I know it's not conventional, but this is what I do. And I'm not going to be sorry about who I am and how I tell my story or how I create music. There is room to learn how you do it. And then you could teach others too.
Yeah.
But I think I covered more than 3, but that's it.
That's good. That's good.
Each other.
Beautiful. Very inspiring. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Nicole. It's always a pleasure. This is even more of a pleasure for me. I hope it was a pleasure for everybody who joined us, and I hope it's a pleasure for those that join us later on via whatever channels that they access this.
Yeah.
This
And please
conversation.
go see Samson's show.
Oh yes,
I
thank
have
you.
to call him Makosi Samson. No, I've seen you close off. I think he's more daring than I, in the sense of dealing with his own journey of becoming a healer through this work. Um, Being trans, he just blew me away. So he's actually dealing, whereas my work dealt with the Orishas, even though I am an initiate of Sangoma as well, he's dealing with that specific journey.
Yeah.
And I'm so thrilled, and I'm sure that will influence and beckon me to do work of that specificity as well. So I'm really excited to see his work next week.
Yes, we're all very excited. It's happening next week. If you don't have tickets, you can go to passmarai.ca, and there's all the information there. And
may I jump in?
Yes, of course.
Pick
Go
up
ahead.
the Theater Pass Marai. Y'all are doing another blackout. You
Yes.
got when you guys did it with the piece.
Negroes are congregating. Yes.
Look, you changed my life. I need to just hail you guys up. So what a blackout is for Black audiences only. Oh my God, so revolutionary. You guys were the first to do it here in Canada. So for those Black artists who even may seek a different type of experience in a safe space to do that, go to the Black. It was church.
Yeah.
When I went, it was so refreshing.
Yeah.
Because you understood everything. There was no over explaining a nothing. So the conversations afterwards just went into a different place, and you were able to just touch somebody. This was on his live and be like, "Ha ha, girl, say it again." Like, it was so good. And I know if we were seeing Makosi Samson's work live, I'd be screaming, Takosa Makosi, Yamo, Yamo. Like, I'd be screaming.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing it digitally.
Yeah. You can do it digitally on February 12th, but you never know. Maybe it'll come back again. Maybe. Who knows?
I hope so.
Maybe.
We need to experience that live.
Yes.
Big up to you.
I agree
with you.
You
guys are doing revolutionary things. I love you guys for that.
Thank you so much, Nicole. We love you. And if people want to know more about you, if somebody joined us and they don't know, where can they go to follow? Is there a website that they can?
So I'm not good social media wise. I'm going to admit it.
Yeah.
But Obeah Opera has a website, so obeahopera.com.
Correct.
And you can follow me through @Obeah Opera on Instagram and Twitter. I'm just not very good at that stuff, but you'll learn everything about the show on the website. I have made a commitment to myself in 2021 to actually get a website about me. Because people are like, yeah, that's your show, but what about you? And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah. So that is a goal, but yeah, you can get in contact with me for sure. Like, it's me that manages those. So go to obeahopera.com.
Angela just posted obeahopera.com on the
chat.
Awesome.
And you'll be able to catch me there and learn about that work there. And I will definitely announce when it happens, my own website, so you can learn more about it.
I'm so excited. Yeah. So excited.
I just want to say a quick thank you to Nicole, to Indrid, and to all the Theater Pass Marai staff who've helped us make this happen. And just encourage everyone once again to check out 11/11. It's happening next weekend. Previews February 10th, and the show runs from February 11th to the 13th. The Blackout night performance is February 12th, and we have pay what you can afford tickets starting at just $5. And we also have a financial accessibility program if that's not something that you can afford at this time. We would just love for you to come see this extraordinary show. So thank you all so much for being here with us today.
And thank you for having me, by the way, Theater Pass Marai. Again, I'm going to just hail up our AD as well, Marjorie Chan. The work you guys are doing, amazing. Thank you for having me and for allowing me to share in this capacity, because it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Lots of virtual hugs, sending it that way. And lots of
Absolutely.
virtual
Till we
kisses.
meet again in person.
Yes, until the next time.
Thank you, everybody.